Pranam sir, and welcome to the program Light on the Path.
Thank you.
Justice Manepalli Narayana Rao Venkatachaliah is a name revered in the history of Indian judiciary system. He was the 25th Chief Justice of India. Born on the 25th of October 1929, he earned a degree in Bachelor's in Science from the University of Mysore and a degree in Bachelor in Law from the Bangalore University. He started practicing law in 1951 and was appointed permanent judge of the High Court of Karnataka on 6 November 1975. He was elevated as Judge of the Supreme Court of India on 5th October 1987. Finally, he became the 25th Chief Justice of India on 12th February 1993 and subsequently retired on 24th October 1994. Post-retirement, he has continued to work on anti-corruption and human rights issues, including support for the launch of the Initiatives of Change Center for Governance in 2003. He served as the chairman of National Human Rights Commission from 1996 to 1998, and in 2000 he headed National Commission to review the working of the Constitution. M.N. Venkatachaliah was awarded the prestigious Padma Vibhushan in 2004, the second highest civilian award in the Republic of India. The other honors he has been bestowed upon include Doctor of Letters, Pondicherry University, Doctor of Laws, Manipal University, and Honorary Doctorate from Rani Chennamma University, Belagavi. Justice Venkatachaliah is an author of repute. His foreword to some distinguished books speaks volumes about his writing skills. After his retirement, Justice Venkatachaliah started serving as the Chancellor of Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, a deemed university, a modern Gurukula. He is also on the advisory board of the Foundation for Restoration of National Values, a society that strives to restore national and cultural values of India. He is also the patron of India International ADR Association. What a pleasure it would be showcasing the life of Justice Manepalli Narayana Rao Venkatachaliah.
Your childhood, what are your earliest memories of your childhood?
My earliest memories are of my maternal grandfather.
Maternal grandfather.
He was a judge of the High Court.
In Bangalore?
In Karnataka High Court in the old days. And he was a gracious old person. He lived in some style. He had a horse cart, a phaeton,
Yes, sir.
a beautiful car.
Yes, sir.
And as children, he would take us in his coach, the horse-driven coach, to the Lalbagh Gardens.
Oh.
And spend time with his grandchildren.
That's good.
The place where he lived was very close to the Lalbagh Gardens.
Yes.
So my earliest memories of my childhood
Yes.
are reminiscent of my maternal grandfather.
What about your early schools, early friends and family?
Oh yes, I was put into the National Primary School, which was close to my house.
Yes, sir.
Close to my heart also.
Yes.
If I think of a teacher and a school, my thoughts run back to, say, some 85 years ago or 86 years ago when I was put into the primary school. That's a great school.
Yes, sir. Sir, tell us something about, you had joined college and there were interesting time and lot of things happened. But what were your adolescent dreams those time? What you thought of?
You were asking me the the days, the 40s,
Yes, sir.
42 to 47,
Yes, sir.
there were tumultuous years.
Yes, sir.
There was war, there was rationing of food,
Oh,
and there was the Quit India movement,
yes, sir.
there was partition of India,
Yes, sir.
and the decade of the 40s was perhaps the most poignant part of Indian history.
Yes, sir.
And when India became free in 47,
Yes, sir.
it's not an unmixed elation,
Yes, sir.
because the consequence of partition
Yes, yes, sir.
and the disruption.
Yes.
Some of my friends who studied with me went away to Pakistan.
To Pakistan.
And that traumatic 5 years between 42 to 47.
Oh, these are the things which were happening in the society and around you, sir.
Around,
but
yeah.
what was inside you, sir? What were you, I mean, your
We were,
aspirations or
frankly-
dreams at that point of time?
Frankly, we were confused about India and the future,
Yes, sir. Because
future of the world.
yeah, at that point.
The Second World War was a terrible thing.
Yes.
My
At what point of time, sir, you started thinking that maybe law is your calling?
Yes, even after the high school days,
Oh, I see.
my father was a
Quite
lawyer,
early. Yes, sir. So quite
had an
early.
established office. My grandfather was a judge.
Yes, sir.
So that was a kind of a,
Okay, sir. So LLB you did in which college?
in the Bangalore Law College.
Okay, sir. But this point of time, I mean, your early days of Bangalore when you were going with your maternal grandfather to
That was
Nalbag.
childhood days.
Yes, sir, childhood days. And now, at this point of time, you had already completed BSc and then LLB. What type of Bangalore was there, sir?
See, Bangalore was perhaps the most tranquil city in India.
Yes, sir.
Climatically, people were friendly. The population was not the size that you find today.
Yes, sir.
It's a placid, climatically very.
Not many, I mean, traffic and vehicles. And
No,
all
no,
that.
no, hardly. In the road in which I live, even 60s, hardly 5 cars would move.
That's right.
Today, I'm told there are 30,000 cars that crisscross that road today.
Yes, sir. At this point of time, sir, you had, I mean, about to perhaps take a plunge on your own in the world as a individual, adult individual. What was your philosophy of life or your worldview at this point of time, sir?
So, it is a bit of an exaggeration to say that we entertained some worldview. Our concerns were immediate concerns of day-to-day life and a professional life.
Right, sir.
And some kind of a passing with the political movements
Yes, sir.
that happened.
Yes, sir.
The Constitution was enacted, Constitutional Assembly
Yes.
was, in fact, two things that are very significant in my personal estimate.
Yes, sir.
One was the Indian Constitution making.
Okay. Were you following it at that point of time?
Oh yes, yes, as student of law,
Yes, sir.
we were greatly touched and inspired by what was going on there.
In the Constitutional Assembly, their debates and all that.
The debates reached spiritual heights.
Yeah, yes. Wonderful.
Their concern was to protect the future generations of Indians
Yes, sir.
from the scourge of communalism.
Yes, sir.
And in fact, if you follow, I even today believe that lawyers, even general education, should absorb and make a part of it the
debates
in the Constitutional Assembly.
Yes, I think I fully agree with you.
And it was, in fact, there was something which everybody uniformly
Yes, sir.
was concerned with, was how to protect the posterity from the scourge of communal violence.
I think we can find many answers even now, sir, for what we are facing today. I
Yes,
think many answers can be
You're right.
seen
You're
there.
right.
Sir.
And I think it must be a part of study of the constitution making,
Yes, sir.
not the constitution itself. That's another thing. That's the legal and judicial process.
Yes.
It's a political process.
Yes, sir. Alladi Krishna Iyer, Hari Vishnu Kamath, what debates are
Oh, yes, yes. Ambedkar,
Ambedkar, yeah, himself.
Sir Alladi. In fact, Sir Alladi Krisami are cautioned us
Yes, sir.
that the constitution is not a self-executing machine document.
Exactly, sir.
The means by which it would be put into execution were three. First, the common law,
Yes,
the common law of India.
Yes, sir.
Then legislation.
Yes, sir.
Third is constitutional conventions. Respect for constitutional conventions is as important as respect for law,
Yes.
as the principles of common law.
Yes, sir.
And that was, in fact, I must tell you, the constitution-making process in those days
Yes, sir.
attracted the admiration of people all over the world, scholars all over the world.
I think.
And there are some deep studies made of the constitution making in India.
Yes, sir.
It's a very, very touching, very beautiful process. Everybody was concerned
Yes.
how to protect the posterity
Yes, sir.
from the scourge that they experience
Yes, sir.
of this thing. That was
Partition and all that.
partition was perhaps the most traumatic experience. People could have any mass transportation of people, unheard of in civilized world. In the middle of the 20th century, in the cultured heart of India, this happened.
Yes, sir. I think those Constituent Assembly debates were some of the things like open-mindedness and their concern for others is something extremely inspiring, sir.
You see, it is reflected in every breath of the constitution making.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The country was such a complex country. So many languages, so many cultures, so many things that divide man from man.
Their intellectual integrity was
the compromise that they had to make.
Yeah, exactly. Give and take, open-mindedness.
For example, the right of a person professing the Sikh faith to carry a kripan
Yes, sir.
had to be expressly provided in the constitution. Imagine the extent of concerns they had to answer and meet.
Yes, sir. Sir, you started, after your LLB, you started practicing in 1951.
Yes, I started right away. My father's office already.
You were just 22 years of age at that time.
I was 21.
21?
Yes, yes.
We can imagine a young and dashing
Not very dashing,
in the high court.
I was quite young, that I must admit to that.
Yes, sir. So, but what was you were practicing in the lower courts, or you start in the high court?
My father just insisted that I should start my work in the lower court.
Lower court. Oh, right.
And
so
that was the
most
most happening place, most exciting place.
Yes, sir.
Cross-examining witnesses.
Yes.
And this was so exciting and so attractive.
Yes, sir.
It's a very lucrative profession also.
But what was your first impressions about the court proceedings, the whole system of justice?
Docket clogging, overcrowded courts. But you get accustomed to it. When you get accustomed to it,
Yes.
it is a very, as a professional person, is very enjoyable.
Yes, sir.
And but seriously, it has impeded the system of administrative justice, in my opinion, has impeded the progress of our country as a nation substantially, because the uncertainties, glorious uncertainties of the law. And courts have done very well to the extent they can.
Yes,
but it has to be a much bigger thing. That's another debate.
Yes.
Another debate.
Yes,
It's, that concerned us when we went to the judiciary.
Yes, sir. Yes, yes. And their role in the nation building and nation progress. Yes. But you were taking mostly the criminal cases or civil cases, or both?
Mostly my practice was on the civil side.
Civil side.
My father was also a lawyer on the civil side.
Okay, sir.
He spoke law and English beautifully.
Okay, sir.
He threw up a huge practice to accept a principalship of the government law college. He was the first principal of the government college. He built that college.
Oh, I see, sir. Oh, that's
And he threw up a huge practice.
Tell us something about, sir, your first income when you started. How did it feel and what did you do with that?
You know, my father somehow wanted to retain me in the profession.
Yes, sir.
And I wanted to go to some competitive examinations and all that.
Yes, sir.
And he bought me a beautiful small car.
Yes, sir.
An Austin
Okay.
Somerset.
Okay.
The first time in 1951, the Austin changed their model.
Yes, sir.
It's a lovely small car, green, beautiful, shining. The paint also had changed those days.
True, sir.
And he presented me a beautiful car.
When you started practicing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And he insisted that every year I should take a holiday for 1 month and go away to Ooty.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And he said, the last day the courts close, you go away and come back a week before the reopening of the courts.
Okay.
He said, and in the holidays, you must read the head notes of all the pre-council cases.
Oh, I see.
Yes, that's
So it was not actually a holiday.
No,
it
but,
was a mixture of always.
yes,
always, sir. But what about your first fee, sir, as an advocate from a client? How did you feel? And
I became a taxpayer within 3 years of my my starting of practice.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I've been a taxpayer for 65 years now.
Oh, sir. Yes, sir. At this point of time, sir, any of those days, practicing days, any incident or event or happening which is etched in your memory? You
see, the constitutional remedies, the prerogative writs were not yet popular or familiar to lawyer communities.
Oh.
So this started, you know, those first cases of idealistic approach
Yes, sir.
needed constitutional amendments later because of the very strict view they took of their rights.
Yes, sir.
More than the liabilities.
Liability, yes.
And for example, in the early 50s, there was a case of Doordarshan. A reservation made for a backward class was struck down by the Madras High Court.
Yes, sir.
Supreme Court upheld that.
Yes, sir.
Then it needed a constitutional amendment to provide for reservation for the backward classes under 15(4) and 16 and all that. That this social interaction, social conflicts,
Yes, sir. Yes.
that the working of equality principle as we
How it
understood.
could be resolved through these processes.
Yes, that was a great experience. Indian constitution making and working of the Indian constitution
Yes, sir. Yes.
is an exciting subject. I think nowhere in the world you have an example of this kind.
Oh, that's very nice to hear.
Nowhere of this kind. And by and large, people have handled their conflicts very, very imaginatively and with great sympathy.
Yes, sir. Sir, you became High Court judge in the month of November 1975.
Oh, yes.
6th of November, if I remember, 6th of November, you were just 46 years of age.
No, 3 years earlier, the Chief Justice invited me
Yes, sir.
for a meal in his house.
Yes, sir. Who were the Chief Justice at that time?
Narayan Pai was the Chief Justice. He very gently suggested to me that I should join the court.
Yes, sir.
I had a lot of commitments with my clients.
Yes, sir.
Some of the very rich clients were both my clients and friends.
Yes, sir.
And I thought that I'll be betraying all my friends.
Yes, sir.
So I very politely declined.
Oh, that was even 3 years before this happened.
Yes. In 1975,
Yes, sir.
the Chief Justice perhaps might have suggested to the Chief Justice of India.
Okay, sir.
He had come to Bangalore.
Yes, sir.
He summoned me. We talked of many things. At the end of it, after half an hour of talk,
Yes, sir.
he stood up, shook my hands and told me, virtually, he said, day after tomorrow I'm getting back to the Supreme Court.
Yes, sir.
In the first court hall in the Supreme Court, I'll announce that I have persuaded you to accept a judgeship of the High Court. Look at the way in which the appointment was done.
Yes, sir. Oh, this is the way. I mean,
And I didn't know what to say. We talked of
Recognition of merit, sir. Recognition of merit.
No, I don't think so. I don't say that I was the most meritorious or things. No, not at all. There are very many people who were the obvious choices for this thing.
But what was the average, used to be average age of a High Court judge at the time?
Those days was say between 40 to 50.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Judges have become, for example, some judges became in their 30s in various high courts.
Yes, sir.
Some very great judges.
Okay. So it is nothing, I mean, there's no hard and fast.
Now they've had a kind of a thumb rule that judges the High Court should not be invited less than 45 years.
Okay, sir. Okay.
They'll have a career of almost 17 years ahead of them.
So then you were High Court judge till 1987 for about 12 years.
12 years.
12 years. So before that you had practiced here, then you were a High Court judge, sir. So you have watched the close quarters, all sorts of litigations.
Of course.
Particularly often within the family, within the relatives or friends. Now, how did you counterbalance? Mostly you see this, this is a negative aspect of human nature, so that how litigation taking place often among the friends and relatives. How did you counterbalance this, this aspect in your personal life?
The judicial process itself,
yes, sir.
The way the judge was conceived, judge's role was conceived of in the common law system,
yes, sir.
That of an umpire. He should not intrude too much into the litigation.
Yes, sir.
He can't cover himself in the dust of the ring.
Right, sir.
He's something like a cricket umpire.
Yes, sir.
You say, how is that? You say out or not out.
Yes, sir.
This is the kind of role that traditionally in the common law system, the adversarial system,
yes,
a judge is confined to.
Yes, sir.
But an imaginative judge, a sympathetic judge,
yes, sir.
a judge who is not too self-conscious about his powers,
yes,
and his status and things like that,
yes, sir.
He can be of great help in bringing about settlement. I recall to you one instance.
Yes, sir, please.
One of my earliest cases, I think it's in 1951 or 52.
Yes, sir.
I was appearing before a very, very conscientious, very soft-spoken, great gentleman judge,
yes, sir.
by name T.N. Mallappa. It was a matrimonial case.
Okay.
The way aggressively I was trying to put things across.
As an advocate.
As an advocate.
Yes, sir.
It alarmed him. He was absolutely concerned. He said, this is not the way to approach the matter. Then do you know what he did?
Yes, sir.
He summoned both the disputing husband and wife to his chambers, spent an hour with him, with them,
yes, sir.
Then put them together and brought about a kind of a settlement between them.
Yes,
put them in his own car and asked his driver to drop them at home.
Wonderful.
And asked them to report back to him every month about the progress of their married life, reunited married life.
As you said, that is sympathetic.
That was something with I still remember with 70 years ago.
Yes, sir.
That's the kind of approach a judge can make.
So then, at the age of 58, I think again October 87, you became...
That's another story.
Yes, sir.
I might
we must hear
to
it.
let you into it.
Yes, sir.
One day, I had not even seen the Chief Justice of India.
Yes, sir.
I had not met him, I had not seen him even. One morning he telephoned to me.
Who was the Chief Justice?
Mr. Chief Justice R.S. Pathak.
Oh, Pathak.
He telephoned to me in the morning and said, Mr. Pathak, I said, which Mr. Pathak? Chief Justice Pathak. Then I said, sir, to what good fortune do you owe the honor of your call?
Yes, sir.
He said, I want you to join the court. How soon can you come?
Yes, sir.
I was taken aback. I told him, sir, I am not the obvious choice.
Yes,
there are some seniors to me in my own court.
Yes, sir.
He said, leave that to me to decide.
Yes,
if you have any other objection, you tell me.
Yes, sir.
Then it happened. Of course, I am letting you into perhaps a kind of a secret. 37 years ago.
Yes, sir.
Then the law minister,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Shivshankar,
Oh,
he came to Bangalore
Yes.
and wanted to see me.
yes, sir.
I asked the registrar, please request the law minister to tell me what he wants to see me about.
Yes, sir.
He was a little unhappy with the answer. He went away without meeting me.
Yes, sir.
Then I happened to chance him a couple of weeks later in a wedding house
Yes.
where he was also invited.
Yes, sir.
He suggested that I should call on the Prime Minister.
Oh,
I told him calling on the Prime Minister is a matter of great honor.
yes, sir.
But in this context, I don't think it's
Proper to do it.
It violates the rule of propriety.
Yes, sir.
He said that, sir, this is a Chief Prime Minister must also know whom he is appointing,
Yes, sir.
even as the Chief Justice of India.
Yes, sir.
I said, well, that must be on the basis of the record of performance of a person,
Yes, sir.
not on his personal appearance.
Yes, sir.
Then he said, have you made up your mind that you shouldn't meet the... I said, I have not made up my mind that I shouldn't see the Prime Minister, but not in this context.
This is context. Yes, sir. Yeah.
And he gave me the impression that that was a part of the convention.
Yes, sir.
I didn't agree.
Yes, sir.
Then I prepared my mind to tell the Honorable Chief Justice of India that I
withdraw.
very politely.
Yes, yes.
But I didn't do that. I was thinking about it.
Yes, sir.
In the meanwhile,
Yes, sir.
the Attorney General, Mr. Parasharan, who was then Parasharan,
Yes, sir.
he telephoned to me. He said, the Prime Minister sent for him
Yes, sir.
and told him, I am proud to be a Prime Minister of the country where judges are like this.
Wonderful.
Please announce this name tomorrow.
Wonderful.
I never had the privilege of meeting him.
Wonderful, sir. Who was the Prime Minister, sir?
I think it was Mr. Rajiv Gandhi.
Oh, I see, sir. So
I'm-
it tells a lot about the process, sir, and a lot about the people involved.
That's what he did. And Mr. Parasharan was the Attorney General then.
Yes, sir.
I just had a passing acquaintance with
Yes.
him. He might have appeared in my court once or twice, or
Yes.
he was otherwise well known.
Yes, sir.
He telephoned to me late in the night and said, this is what the Prime Minister said.
That's
See
right.
the way in which things were happening.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And I remember I didn't have the privilege of meeting that Prime Minister at all.
Okay.
That was
Now, you were for many years in High Court of Karnataka before this practice. Then you went to Delhi in '87 in the Supreme Court. When you started functioning there, what difference, I mean, did you find, sir, or what is the difference between functioning as a High Court judge and then in the Supreme Court, sir?
It's an entirely different thing.
In what way, sir?
In the sense that judges in the Supreme Court work under their tremendous sense of responsibility that they are arbiters of the fate of people.
So responsibility itself is very,
Yes,
very different.
It's a weighs down on you.
Yeah.
Because in the High Court, if you have made a mistake,
Somebody is there to
somebody will correct you. Here, there is nobody to correct you. And your mistake, somebody else pays for.
Yes.
And that sense is a...
So it is not the sense of authority, but the sense of responsibility that must prevail, sir.
Yes,
at
yes,
that point.
that
That stays, sir.
yes,
That
yes,
level.
that weighs down on a
Yes.
person.
Yes, sir.
Because
Yes.
30-year litigation
Yes, sir.
comes to a final stage.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes.
and that is a very sensitive feeling,
Yes.
that you have to say the last word on a matter.
Now, you were used to Bangalore life, sir, and it was even better at that point of time, climate as well as otherwise. And then you went to Delhi, which was quite different climate from here. And also, I think the surroundings, the society. Did you have to make any adjustment? What type of, I mean...
I kept away from social
Yes,
circle.
Yes.
But
otherwise, some sort of adjustment?
I don't think. I kept myself very strictly to myself.
Yes, sir.
and there is not much of social life in Delhi,
Yes, sir.
excepting with brother judges and
Yes,
very few occasions.
Yes, sir.
And the workload was such that you had no time for that. You had no time for that.
Yes, sir.
You know, the American Supreme Court decides 130 cases a year. The House of Lords, now the Supreme Court of England,
Yes, sir.
they decide about 60 cases a year.
Yes, sir.
In the Supreme Court of India, they list 1,000 cases every week
Every week, sir. Yes, sir.
in various forms. And that is the magnitude of the work
Which
that
Supreme
that
Court is
court
handling.
handles.
Yes, yes, country itself. So you became the 25th Chief Justice of India in February '93.
Yeah.
And you had a remarkable tenure as Chief Justice of India. I think one of the most remembered, most
don't
respected Chief Justice of our.
It's good of you to say that.
No, very
But,
nice. But any marked changes when you became, you were High Court Judge, you were Supreme Court Judge, now you are Chief Justice of India. So in your attitude or in your worldview, in your view of life, did you feel any changes? I mean, internally, it may not have been manifested anyway, but did you feel anything?
See, yes, in a non-trivial sense,
Yes, sir.
a lot of changes that in the role perception
Right.
that occurs.
Yes, sir.
In fact, we had an established system of an Indo-British legal forum. Judges from England would come once in 4 years or 2 years or
Yeah.
periodically.
Yes, sir.
Indian judges go there to interact with them.
Yes, sir.
In my time, I started the Indo-US Legal Forum.
Okay, sir.
I inaugurated it sometime in '93 in Washington. The American judges would periodically come here.
Yes.
Our judges go there.
Okay.
That interaction was a very interesting interaction.
But what type of interactions were these, sir?
Beg pardon?
What type of interaction? About the
No, there are
processes?
specific
or about-
subjects. They identify specific subjects.
Yes, sir.
One judge on the Indian side writes a paper on it.
Okay.
One judge on the American side writes a paper on the same subject.
Yes, sir.
They discuss it amongst
Okay, wonderful.
the group of judges and compare notes.
Yes, sir.
And
So best practices could be picked up or
yes.
and necessary improvements or adjustment
that
brought
process was going on for a long time between, in fact, between America and England. How to hear appeals was one of the interesting questions.
out. Yes, sir.
There was a committee under the chairmanship of Sir Raymond Evershed.
Yes, sir.
There are American judges and English judges.
Yes, sir.
How do you hear appeals on either side of the Atlantic?
Yes, sir.
In English, what is the process of the pure orality of the process in England
Yes, sir.
was pitched against the written arguments of this thing.
Yes, sir.
And one judge very subtly remarked that 100 pages of a closely typed written argument is not equivalent to one meaningful shrug of shoulders, of a Queen Counsel in the court.
Wonderful, sir.
The
Wonderful.
way
Which is true.
the
Which is-
orality of the
Yes,
process. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes. It may not be proper to ask you about most interesting cases you had to handle or came up during that time. I think may not be proper, but at least some lasting impressions you may kindly
I won't say
tell something about when
any
you were-
case can be interesting.
Yes, sir.
It can only be less and less distressing.
Sir.
No case, in fact, we had to deal with the first demolition of Ayodhya.
Yes, sir.
That was a case which created some kind of a sensation, very serious issues. Then I had to sit on the bench of that Bhopal gas tragedy.
Yes, sir.
That compensation and the
Yes.
criminal prosecution of the chairman of that company.
Yes, sir.
All those cases caused a lot of anxiety and some amount of deepened our sense of responsibility to the nation.
Yes, sir. Sir, after retirement from the Supreme Court in the year 94,
Yes, sir.
right? You came as the chairman of the National Human Rights Commission. Sir.
That was 2 years later.
2 years later, sir.
Yes,
2 years.
96.
So 96 you...
96.
96 to 99 perhaps you were there, sir. Now, how was this functioning different from your judicial
See,
assignments?
my own personal, of course, purely personal impression is,
Yes, sir.
any judge who goes to the Supreme Court
Yes, sir.
must have a stint in the Human Rights Commission.
Before going there?
Yes. So you have an exposure
Yes, sir.
at the state of human rights in India.
Yes, sir.
In fact, I was asked by a journalist abroad
Yes, sir.
to ask me what is the state of human rights in India in one word.
Yes, sir.
That's kind of ambush journalism, you know. I said, good.
Yes, sir.
She asked me, supposing I asked you to say in 2 words,
Yes.
I said, not good. So, you know, the state of human rights
Yes, sir.
needs a lot of improvement. I don't want to go into specific cases,
specific examples,
very distressing experience
yes, sir.
that I went through as noticing the kind of enormity of the
violation of human
excesses that
yes, sir.
show the person with a little authority,
Yes, sir.
how he behaves himself
Yes,
towards ordinary fellow citizens,
Yes, sir.
is an eye-opening thing. Why should people do this kind of thing?
Yes.
In fact, I think the political situation, in fact, you know, democracy, somebody very cynically said, is the worst form of government,
Oh, I see.
accepting all other systems tried so far. I think it is attributed to Churchill,
Oh, I see.
Sir Winston Churchill.
One
that he
can
said
imagine
that Bernard Shaw improved upon it. Somebody said, in democracy, you get the government you deserve.
Yes, sir.
He said, democracy is a system that assures that you don't get a better system than you deserve. How true it is.
Yes,
See what happened in the heart of cultured Europe in the 20th century in Hitler's Germany.
Yes, sir. It happened.
One writer said, street gangs came into the possession of the resources of a great modern state.
Yes, sir.
And he added, gutter came to power.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And it was claimed that it was a popular democratic vote.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And the conditions of our country, we have fortunately the people, ordinary people, so-called uneducated people, ignorant people, they are the soul of democracy in this country.
Exactly, sir.
They are the soul, they have the sense in their heart
I think
what is right or what is wrong.
We should always keep that in mind.
That keep that in mind. And
Not only
then,
that people in position are...
then you must protect them from the ravages of rapacious administration.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And unless you put a buffer between the political executive
Yes, sir.
and the permanent civil services,
Yes, sir.
like the English people have done,
Yes.
they have the ombudsman, British ombudsman.
Yes, sir.
He is an extension of the parliament, in the English parliament.
Yes, sir.
The ventilatory jurisdiction of the parliament, because parliament couldn't spend so much time on individual case of.
Yes, sir.
They put that he is called the Parliamentary Commissioner for Administration.
Yes, sir.
There's an act in 67 or so, Parliamentary Commissioner for Administration Act.
Yes.
He's the British Ombudsman.
Yes, sir.
Generally, he's a executive officer, not a judge.
Yes, sir.
And see how efficiently they do. See, in fact, I mean, I don't want to generalize it.
Yes, sir.
There are great politicians who have thought well of the country. They are responsible for great legislative measures for improving the lot of the ordinary people. But by and large, the combination of the bureaucracy and the political element, if you don't put a buffer,
Yes, sir.
and the supervision of the political element
Yes, sir.
on the bureaucracy through must an ombudsman,
Yes.
as England has done. There, the complaint to the ombudsman can be made only by a member of the House of Commons.
Oh, yes, sir.
So some system like that will, otherwise, I wouldn't want to use the word collusion.
Yes, sir.
The kind of understanding between the bureaucracy, permanent civil services and the political executive has been responsible for a lot of concern.
But that tempts me to go a few steps back and ask this question as to how does it happen that a welfare state and the administration which is supposed to provide services to the people, for example, IPS, it's called Indian Police Service, sir. IAS, it's called Indian Administrative Service. We are all supposed to provide. How does it happen, sir, that people have to struggle and fight and against the atrocities of the very agencies which are supposed to look after them? How does it happen, sir?
You see, this is a question which is a provoking one.
Yes, sir.
I have thought very deeply on that, both in the Constitutional Review Commission
and
and the Human Rights
say
Commission.
something about it, sir, if whatever you can.
And I must tell you, the civil services have done a great service to the nation.
Yes, sir.
They've held the iron steel framework,
Yes,
as it's called, has kept the country together.
Yes, sir.
But the nexus between the political element, I am not speaking of any
one political
politician
party or something.
or a political system.
Yes, sir.
I have seen, met and interacted with some of the finest minds in politics.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Some of them who are not lawyers, who know more law and more justice than lawyers and judges do.
Yes, sir.
I must pay my tribute to some of them who are remarkable people.
Sir.
I have known them personally.
Yes, sir.
They are amongst my personal friends. I have known some officers, police officers and executive officers who are shining examples of the highest noble
Honesty.
products of the system.
Yes.
I can, for example, I might be speaking to one now. But what I think is, unless you take a strong second look and put a buffer, how does a corrupt politician take advantage of the
Corrupt administration, bureaucrat.
You must have the British system in which the parliamentary, the political executive's power to oversee administration is through an ombudsman.
Yes, sir.
If they go wrong, in the British ombudsman, the only person who can complain is a member of the House of Commons.
Yes, sir.
Not a public can't go to him. Then some system of that kind is necessary here.
Yes, sir.
And unfortunately, the services the people are entitled to are mistaken to be welfare-based. They are not right-based.
Yeah, yes.
You must
yes,
make it right-based.
Right-based, yes, sir.
And make an advertisement so that everybody will know what his entitlement is.
Yeah.
Now everybody thinks that he is getting it as a gratis, some
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of a favor.
Actually, announcements are made as if something is being given from
Yeah,
personal
yes,
pocket.
Yes. The projection of all these services as welfare-based services is the mistake, and people think that, and they must be converted to right-based things.
Yes, sir.
We don't want your charity.
Yes, sir.
If I'm entitled to it, I shall have it
Yes, yes.
through process of law if necessary. This is a very, very important thing in my opinion.
Yes, sir.
This is the lesson I have learned both as working in the Human Rights Commission and as the Constitutional Review Commission.
Yes, that I was coming to that in 2000 February.
Yeah.
You became the chairman of the National Commission for Reviewing the Working of Constitution, and you gave report. You and your colleagues, they gave report in 2002. So with that, I mean, not that you had to study Constitution for this purpose. You already, right from as we saw that even your very early days, the discussions and debates of Constitutional Assembly you were interested in. But how can the Constitution play a role in molding the ethics and ethics of people in general, sir? The character, the value system. How can a Constitution do it, and are we doing it?
This is exactly the question Dr. Ambedkar was asked in the Constitutional Assembly.
Yes, sir.
The American Constitution runs to a few pages.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Why have you prescribed
Such a
an elephantine size of Constitution for India?
Yes, sir.
It's a lawyer's paradise.
Yes, sir.
they say it's a lawyer's paradise. Why did you do that?
Yes, sir.
The answer of Ambedkar was simply touching and remarkable. He said, I am not apologetic about its size.
Yes, sir.
The spirit of democracy, the moral issues of democracy are a mere top dressing on Indian soil.
Yes, sir.
Basically, Indian system is undemocratic system. Hierarchy of caste, hierarchy of authorities and
Yes.
things like that.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, he wanted a constitutional document to unite all institutions, bring them within the bonds of common bonds of constitutional justice.
Yes, sir.
So that's how he envisaged a constitution for India, that everything must come as a constitutional right and a constitutional obligation on the part of those who govern.
Yes, sir.
It's not some kind of a charity that somebody is giving.
Yes, sir.
Unless you convert these public services as right-based obligations of the state, not welfare-based kind of idea that says, oh, my bap, this
Yes.
thing,
Yes, sir.
things won't change, particularly in the developing states. For example, in the southern states, it's
Yes.
totally different.
Yes, sir. Then, yeah.
You can't imagine, see, when people complain of the tardy progress of Indian nation, one must put into scales the enormous amount of population growth that we have seen.
Yes, sir.
At the time of independence, we were 330 million, we are 1,300 odd million today.
Yes, sir.
In the 40s, these years I spoke of,
Yes, sir.
do you know the rate of maternal mortalities in India? There was a Bohr committee which looked into health situation.
Must
It was
be-
2000.
Must very high, very high.
Today it is 40 in Kerala.
Yes, sir.
The explosion of population,
Yes, sir. Despite
that, from 2000 in the 40s
Yes, sir.
to 40, you can imagine what an amount of road distance we have traveled.
Yes, sir.
But then Kerala is different. It has achieved it through literacy route.
Yes, sir.
Tamil Nadu has achieved it through family planning route.
Yes, sir.
Small families.
Yes, sir.
And population growth both in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. In Kerala, it's even less than subsistence, substitution level,
Yes, sir.
replacement level.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This could be made only by means of educating the girl child.
Yes.
And this means of education, the girl child and education, literacy,
Yes.
spread of literacy
Yes.
and awareness.
Yes.
This is the theories of, there are two broad divisions of economic development which you see. One is the Bhagavati, Jagdish Bhagavati philosophy and the Amartya Sen philosophy. Economists say that.
Yes, sir.
But we have seen the demonstration in Kerala
Yes,
from
sir.
2000 in the 40s to 40 today.
Sir, you mentioned about education. So, I was wondering, sir, that in the Constitution itself and our various systems, I think theoretical, if you see, they are excellent systems, but the delivery, much is to be desired. So that there is a gap. Now, this gap, according to me, could be due to the individuals involved who are implementing these systems. So how to, can our education system do something to ensure that those who become part of the systems deliver the services as expected of them?
I have three assumptions in working in my mind, sir. I don't know whether people agree with me or not, particularly experts. They are knowledgeable people.
Yes, sir.
They worked in that area.
Yes, sir.
Workaday judges, it's only our occasional brush with these things.
Sir.
But three things that I seem to consider important.
Yes, sir.
One is the present generation of human beings are a different species altogether. They are not mere derivatives of the genetic man, the caveman. They are not, they are a separate species.
Sir.
It's a different species altogether in terms of their perception, in terms of their intellectual equipment.
Aspirations also?
Aspirations. And second thing is, science and technology is going to change everything.
Sir.
Everything.
Yes.
5 years from now,
Yes,
everything will be different. We have one great opportunity to leapfrog.
Yes, sir.
Leave behind this thing, leapfrog to the new technology, catch on to it.
Yes, sir.
That requires tremendous preparation,
Yes, sir.
tremendous determination of government
Yes.
to spread this, the
Yes, sir.
fruits and benefits of modern science.
To everybody, sir.
Modern science. See, again, I'll take the example of what the maternal mortality in the 40s.
Yes, sir.
And today, that's the of medical science.
Yes, sir.
Miracles of medical science.
Yes, sir.
Antibiotics, vaccination, immunization, antibiotics, nutrition. How much of growth that we have seen.
Yes, sir.
And one thing is the quality of the quality of the man. I'm not speaking of the moral qualities. I'm speaking of the intellectual qualities.
Yes, sir.
Intelligence.
Yes, sir.
The duty of every state is to promote the intelligence of people. It's a potent teacher. A state is it teaches by its own example.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And this kind of promotion is the answer to promotion of the intelligence of people.
Yes, sir.
And respect for their views.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Invariably, they are right. Governments are wrong. Invariably. But there are cases in which masses are led by misconceptions and prejudices. That's apart from it.
But in this system, sir, somewhere let's say the moral questions, moral values must come in somewhere, sir. Whatever technology, whatever...
Moral lessons are not taught anywhere.
Sir.
They must be demonstrated by teachers and politicians and leaders of the community.
Yes, sir.
They are not setting examples.
Yes, sir.
You can't blame them. They are immoral.
Yes.
They don't know. They are not immoral.
Yes.
They are amoral.
Yes, sir.
And for them, it's only an example that can educate them.
Educate them, sir.
There are shining examples.
Yes. What has been the source of your energy?
I don't think there's any special source of energy for me. But I must admit that I have some concern for my fellow men.
Yeah, that itself is the source of energy.
See, I deal every day with friends and interact with them.
Yes, sir.
I've seen so much of suffering.
Yes, sir.
Avoidable thing.
Yes, sir.
People spend their lifetimes in court pursuing a remedy which ultimately becomes elusive.
Yes, sir. Yes.
But they absorb all that thing. But it expresses itself in some kind of a cynicism against society.
Yes, sir.
So what is the society meant for? If you are Plato was asked,
yes, sir.
Why do people associate themselves into a political society
Yes, sir.
or a social order? He said to provide to each one of them, every one of them,
yes, sir.
the best opportunity of realizing their highest self, highest opportunity of realizing their best self.
Yes, sir.
If society doesn't give that opportunity, not that you make everybody a judge, everybody a prime minister, you can't. Give an opportunity. If you can't give that opportunity, why should they obey your laws and this thing? Yes. Why should they obey the rules of society?
But any particular guiding principles, one or two or three in life you have been
leading for people who are leaders of the community, politicians,
yes,
teachers,
yes, sir.
Philosophers.
Yes, sir.
They must set examples of moral rectitude.
Yes, sir.
Moral rectitude.
Yes.
They have, that unfortunately, of course, there are shining good examples of it. I must admire them.
Yes, sir.
But by and large, they have disappointed us.
Yes, sir.
Particularly the political system.
Yes, sir.
It is a very disappointing situation because it has tossed up not merely mediocres, people who ought not to be there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Who ought not to be there.
Yes, sir.
And what can you expect when such people... in fact, after Abraham Lincoln's assassination in America, a political commentator was very uncharitable. He said, the era of giants is over.
Yes, sir.
And the political scene is peopled with charlatans,
Yes, sir.
quick buck artists,
Yes, sir.
from the muddled mediocre to the dangerously deranged.
Oh,
I don't know whether they should write to apply it to our current situation, but I shouldn't do that because there are still some giants,
yes.
philosophers, thinking people. But technology is something which you should handle with great care and great amount of
responsibility.
Caution.
Yes, caution.
Some areas, some technologies will enrich us
Yes,
and wipe out our this thing. Some technologies are so disruptive
yes, sir.
that in the explosion of that technology,
Yes, sir.
the interface between that explosion and social security, there are very critical issues.
Yes. Sir, what has been your most cherished moment in life?
Meeting people like you.
No, sir, that's very, very trivial thing, sir. I'm thankful to you, but I mean, of course, you have such vast experience, but something very lasting and something special, would you say that?
Sir, those who have spread the light of liberal arts and humanities.
Yes, sir.
Science sharpens an intellect.
Yes, sir.
Humanities widen them.
Yes, sir.
And every course of arts classes must include mathematics as a compulsory subject because it sharpens the mind.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And every science course must have a
humanities
this thing
yes,
that will bring about that and make men more civilized,
yes,
less concentrating on a particular direction of their lives.
yes, yes. What has been most helpful in your journey in the samsara, sir?
Basically, my family,
Sir.
and then my friends,
Sir.
and some of them are great human beings.
Yes, sir.
Some of them are police officers,
Sir.
and some of them are administrators.
Yes, sir.
And my own team of police officers in the Human Rights Commission
Yes, sir.
were great people.
Yes, sir.
I remember them
Yes,
very fondly.
Yes, sir.
I wrote a foreword to a book
Yes, sir.
which my former Director General of Police in the Human Rights Commission wrote
Yes, sir.
on Swami Vivekananda.
Okay, okay, sir.
And a policeman philosopher like you,
Thank
he wrote a book, and I wrote a touching foreword to that. And they are great people, sir. India has great people, but we haven't used them.
What is your message for the youth, sir?
Sir, follow great leaders who have set example. The most shining example is Mahatma Gandhi.
Sir.
And what more do you want?
Yes, sir.
What more do you want?
Yes.
And have these ideals, and without them, life will be barren and empty.
Yes, sir.
It's for not you are doing any good to others, but you must do good to yourself by improving the quality of your life.
Sir, it has been such a pleasure and privilege
conversation
with
my
you.
privilege.
Thank you very much, sir, for